All right, so we just learned about seventh chords, and we have four different kinds. We have the major 7, the minor 7, the dominant 7, and the minor 7 flat 5, or the half diminished, as it's also called. So let's learn our 5 patterns. Let's start with the major 7, and we'll go with C. So we'll start with pattern 1. We have our C octave shape. We have our C major 7 chord. All we're doing is we're adding a B on top. So we're removing our other root in this pattern, and we're letting our second string open, and that's going to be our C major 7. If you did it up here, it would be the same shape you did before in pattern 1, but you have to bar to get that B. Pattern 2, connect our roots, octave shape, major chord, major 7th chord. Again, it's a C major chord with the B on top, or if you look at this piece, that's an E minor triad with the C on the bottom. Pattern 3, octave shape, major chord. Now when we make our pattern 3 major 7th chord, we're not going to put our root in the bass, just because there's no real good way to play it that way. So normally when you're playing this, a major 7th chord like this, you're going to have, a bass playing it or a keyboard or something like that, and it's going to be okay for you to play just the upper piece of it. So this is our pattern 3 major 7 shape. All right, pattern 4, octave shape. There's your major chord right there. And then for our major 7 shape, we're going to do this little cluster here. So you're going to miss the 5th string, and you're just going to let your first finger just kind of rest against that to mute it. So when you strum it, you're just hearing that. And again, you can let your first string, you don't have to play your first string either. So you want to just kind of focus on the C in the bass and this little E minor cluster on top. And lastly, we have pattern 5. Here's our octave shape. We have our pattern 5 major chord. And our root is going to go back a fret to B. And that is going to be our pattern 5 major 7 chord shape. All right, let's stick with C. Let's do minor 7s now. We're going to start with pattern 2. So for pattern 2, we're going to do, there's your C's right there. There's your C minor chord. And for your minor 7, what you're going to do is you're going to lift your pinky up to achieve that flat 7. And what that's going to give you is this E flat major chord with the C in the bass. All right, pattern 3, octave shape, your minor chord shape. And again, with pattern 3, the same thing we did with the major 7, we're doing with the minor 7. We're not going to have our root in the bass just because it doesn't work out well. That is your minor 7, pattern 3 shape. All right, up to pattern 4. There's your octave shape. There's your minor chord shape. And here is your minor 7 shape. The best way to do this is you're playing this little E flat triad here, and you bar it with your 3rd finger, and then you reach over with your 2nd finger to play your root. And you allow your 2nd finger to rest on that, just rub against that 5th string there, so it mutes it. It's a very cool sounding chord. And last we have pattern 5. Oh, not last. We have pattern 5. There's your octave shape. There's your minor chord shape. And your root goes down to a flat 7. There's your minor 7 shape. So now we have pattern 1. Here's your pattern 1 minor chord shape. Now when we go to make our minor 7 shape for pattern 1, what you want to do is bar with your 1st finger. Let's try it down here so you can see it better. You're going to bar with your 1st finger to get both the 4th and 2nd strings, and you reach across. Now notice in here, we're not playing a 5th. This is just a root, a minor third, a flat 7, and another root. Our fifth would be G. So we'd either have to get it here with our second finger, so that would be an inversion, or if we can figure it out, we can put it over here with our pinky and bar with our first finger like that. That's usually pretty hard to accomplish. So most of the time when you're playing your pattern 1 minor 7 shape, you just omit the fifth because it's a perfect interval anyway, and it's not going to change the tonality or anything. It's just going to add that little extra color that the perfect fifth does. All right, let's move right along. Dominant 7. So remember, your dominant 7 is a major triad, but with a flat 7 added on top. So the first 3 chords make a major triad, or the first 3 notes, rather, make a major triad, and the second 3 make a diminished triad. I know we haven't talked about diminished triads too much, but we will in the upcoming lessons. But know that, just like we talked about before, the diminished triad, its role really is that upper part of a dominant 7th chord. So let's go with G this time. So with G, start with pattern 3. There's your octave shape. There's your regular major chord shape. And to make it a dominant 7, we make it a we flat R7. And there's your G7. Up here, what we would do is we would just play this part. We wouldn't worry about playing the root down here. If you can play it, you can play it. But if not, don't worry about it. It's pretty hard to do. But in open position, G7 works perfectly. So then, pattern 4. There's your octave shape. There's your major chord shape. What we do is our pinky is playing our root right now. We lift that up. It gets taken over by the flat 7. And that is your pattern 4 dominant 7th chord. Now what you can also do, to add a little more color, you can add with the pinky, you can add it on the second string to duplicate that flat 7 note. Notice it doesn't change anything. It's still dominant 7. It just makes it a little more brighter. All right, pattern 5. Octave shape. There's your major chord shape. Pinky's on the root. It's going to go down 2 frets to get a flat 7. There's your dominant 7th shape. Pattern 1, octave shape, chord shape, dominant 7th shape. Now again, with this one, we're omitting the 5th, because in G, our 5th would be D, so that would be either here or over here on the first string. And there really just isn't any good way to play that. So we just omit the 5th, because it's a perfect interval anyway, and it doesn't change anything. Last, we have pattern 2. Octave shape, major chord shape. Our root is being played on the 3rd string right now. That's going to go down 2 frets, be played by our barred first finger, and that's going to give us our dominant chord shape. And then next, obviously, like we talked about, is pattern 3 up here, which you would just play like that and omit your root and the bass. All right, and last we're going to do a minor 7 flat 5. So for the minor 7 flat 5, let's do G as well. Why not? So now again, your minor 7 flat 5, your first triad is built off a diminished triad. So I know I haven't showed you the regular diminished chord to play, like in the 5 shapes. And there's a reason behind that. It's because very rarely do you play a diminished chord when it's not just the 3-note cluster, the 3-note triad. You don't really see people playing diminished chords that go across all 6 strings. I mean, you do. People do, they do it, but you're going to find when you play music a lot and you learn a lot of songs that the diminished chord really exists. Its best role, its best function is just that little 3-note triad. So in our next lesson, when we talk about triads and inversions, we're going to go in detail about the shapes of the diminished chord triad. But for right now, we're just going to skip that. We're just going to go on the minor 7 flat 5, which is a diminished chord with a flat 7 on top. So it's a 4-note chord. So in G, this is going to be our G note, and we're adding a B flat minor triad on top. That's what G minor 7 flat 5 is. It's a B flat minor triad with G in the bass. Pretty wild sounding chord, right? It's built on the 7th note. It's a 7th chord built on the 7th scale degree. That really needs resolution. But there's a time and a place for everything, so you have to learn it. All right, so next we're going to do our pattern 5. There you go. There's your minor 7, flat 5. Now, when you go up into pattern 1, it's kind of interesting because you want to get a G and you have to get a B flat minor triad. And again, there's no real perfect way to do this. Pattern 1's a little hairy. Most of the time, you're just going to do pattern 2. So here's pattern 2. That's a nice, easy shape. Pattern 2, pattern 4, and pattern 5 are the ones you're going to use 90% of the time for your minor 7 flat 5 chord. And finally, for pattern 3, again, we're not playing a root. This is our root here, this is our G, but we're not playing a root in the bass. Our flat 5's behind it, this is our flat 3, and this is our flat 7. All right, you're almost done. So what I want you to do is I want you to post a video, just like I did, showing you connecting the 4 different chord types, your major 7, your minor 7, your dominant 7, and your minor 7 flat 5, in all 5 patterns up the neck. Second, I would like to see you post a video playing some progressions using some of these chords. Now here's a new one for you. How about just a 2-5-1? This is your stereotypical jazz progression when you use all 7th chords. So in the key of C, this would be D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Kind of a cool sound. I'm sure you've heard that many times. Right? Very cool. So what I'd like to see you do is play a 2-5-1, just like that. Play it in a couple different keys, and I'm excited to see your videos. And have fun with 7th chords and all the different options you